the association, and particularly, I want to believe that you're here for the same reason that I'm here, and I think we're all here, that we really recognize that this is an important time for Ontario. That there is a signal opportunity here to do better for Ontario. And we really, I think, have to respect the decision that Premier McGuinty made when he called for a new strategy, when he said it's time for Liberals to refresh themselves. And for me, it really comes down to making that work. You know, I grew up in a small town in northern Manitoba, but about 6,000 people, and I became a Liberal almost kind of as a contrarian. My family was Liberal, in fact, originally from Glengarry and then from the Ottawa Valley. My great-grandfather was a Liberal organizer up there. But when it came time for me to choose, it was almost to challenge Liberals on this idea of respect for everybody. Because I didn't feel a lot of respect living in a small town when all the federal elections were over with by the time it hit the Manitoba border. I didn't always feel like, you know, the kind of concerns we had in the north or in smaller communities were being dealt with. But the basic idea that it should. That you should be able to have an equal voice. That you shouldn't have to be in the big city or be in Toronto or be somewhere else to make that happen was a big part of how I became politically involved. As a Liberal in Alberta, for example, not exactly the most popular choice at the time. Felt a little bit like communism out there, but actually we've made a lot of progress. In fact, almost had a chance at government. But the thing about today is we need to recognize the opportunity. For me, I'm running because I want to be a champion for Ontarians. There's times when we have to get beyond partisan politics. We've got to find a way to really connect and represent our friends and neighbors. And that's what we have to ask ourselves at this time of the leadership. What do our friends and neighbors need to put trust and confidence in us again? And I've had the good fortune, both working through the food bank in terms of getting recognition for hunger, and when I used to do the agriculture leadership tours, I came to realize that only farmers, those that produce food, and those that go without, don't take it for granted. And there's a tremendous amount that we need to do to bring about some unity. I'm not about doing special measures for rural Ontario per se. I want to ruralize how we go forward as a province. And we'll talk about that later in terms of the economy and healthcare and so on. But it's about rural areas being viable because the fundamentals of liberalism, when we do our best, is to drive a consensus that includes everybody. You know, and it was my great pleasure to work with John Cleary here and to be here in Avonmore, in fact, when we looked at special needs in the rural area and how that could be done. And with Jim Burnell, I mean, the area has been very fortunate to have strong representation. But it makes me feel very concerned that we have been losing our capacity to say, yes, we can bring together a consensus that includes the whole province. And there's been that disconnect. And when you've got a little shortage in credibility, the only thing you can do is act. And the action that Liberals can take is to choose the best leader. But also in the course of that, it's not just up to the leader. If you choose me, I'm going to be asking a lot of you. And in fact, one of the first things I'm going to do is give up some of the power that accrues to the leader's office. We've all got to acknowledge that we've been part of what political parties all across North America have been doing, which is an unhealthy concentration of power in the leader's office. And what that means is it cuts off the input from the diversity that we have in the province and our ability to act as Liberals and find real solutions. And I really do think that it's that unintentional outcome is why we've had some of the disconnects and some of the things that have happened of late that haven't been fully recognizable as Liberal. We have things to fix. We have to have the capacity as a party to admit where we've made mistakes. We have to make arrangements with our teachers and indeed with the whole public service. The challenge that Drummond has given us in terms of that report is to respond in a Liberal way, is to find ways to transform government to do better. And as Eric says, not to leave people behind. I mean, that's to me the reason we need to be here. I mean, my own personal reason is I've got kids 14 and 10, and I will not let the next generation be worse off than the one before. And yet, if we're honest about it, the people leaving university right now are not getting the same kinds of automatic opportunities that many people in this room used to have. And that's a Liberal proposition. We cannot go into, whether it's a retirement or a sense of security or a sense of looking after ourselves and our extended family, and accept that as an outcome for Ontario. Ontario has a duty that's even stronger today with a Conservative government in Ottawa that is diminishing what we can do together, that almost makes a whole approach of discouraging us from what government can do. We really have to accept this role of leadership that Ontario has had. And it's a different kind of leadership. It's about we don't have oil underneath our feet. We don't have all the economic riches that some people used to assume, but we have tremendous strengths in bringing out the potential of our people. And I look forward to working with you to do that as much here in Avonmore and the rest of of Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry as in any other part of the province. Thanks very much.